Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday, June 14th, 2017 meeting of the Long Meadow School Committee. This meeting is called to order. Our meeting is being recorded and aired live by LCTV. It is also being live streamed on longmeadow.org. It is a legal requirement for anyone else to disclose if they are recording our meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First on our agenda tonight is reorganization of the school committee, and first I want to welcome our new members who are here. Melanie Rothstein, Beth Barron, Karen Morin. Congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's great to have you all here. It's very exciting.
Applause. Maybe.
Yes. I know Stephanie Jasmine will be joining us, and my speech won't be as short as what Russ would write, but it's shorter than what you think it's going to be. Okay. I just wanted to say a brief thank you. Hi, Steph. It was truly an honor to serve as chair this year. My focus was really on collaboration, integrity, and professionalism, and I feel great about everything we accomplished. No matter who's chair, it is always a team effort. And I have to thank my fellow committee members who are here, Russ, Michelle, and Stephanie, and those who are not here, John, Michael, and Liz, for their hard work and dedication to our schools. I am grateful to all of you for your energy, hard work, personal and professional support, and most of all, your friendship. Also, a huge thank you to Diane Jorgantis for your never-ending patience with all of my questions and everyone else's. You are one of the most dedicated and hardest-working people I have ever met in my life, and on behalf of myself and the entire school community, thank you for all you do for us. I just briefly want to say one little thing to those who are watching, to parents, to teachers, and to staff. Please don't ever be afraid to speak up. I can't tell you how much time I've spent over the past year and the very many years I have lived in Long Meadow talking to parents, teachers, and staff who are fearful about sharing their concerns. If I could leave you with one last thought, it would be to never be afraid to speak up on behalf of yourself, your child, or your colleague. We are in an incredible school district, but we're not perfect. And the only way we can keep improving is by hearing directly from our parents and our staff. Please email us, call us, text us. No concern is silly or too small. And most likely, if you or your child is struggling in some way, others are too. We are here to serve you, but we also can't do this job effectively without your help and your honest feedback. I truly believe if we continue to replace fear with collaboration and open communication, we can not only succeed as a school district, we can soar to new and unprecedented heights. Thank you. I will now turn the floor over to Superintendent O'Shea.
Okay, at this point, I'd like to entertain motions from the committee for the position of chair of the Long Meadow School Committee.
So I asked this question last year, but I guess the question is, does anybody want to do it? that was the, it's probably true with all the positions.
Okay.
I would be willing to serve as chair, but I'd want everyone to know ahead of time that because of my schedule now, I would only be able to serve as chair if at least every other meeting was during the day. Basically, I can't be present between the hours of 4 and 9 more than once a month. So I'd want everyone to know that ahead of time, the new members. Stephanie, I know your schedule is up in the air or whatever. So also, I don't live in Long Meadow during summer vacation and wouldn't be able to chair any summer meetings because I wouldn't physically be present. So I'm happy to serve and hope to do my best, but I want everyone to know that ahead of time. So if those things aren't, they don't work for you or you're not comfortable with it, please, I would not take it personally to not vote for me, so.
Any others with an answer to Mr. Duperre's question? Might be interest before a motion is made. It's the one time I get to. There'll be no coup or anything.
Okay.
So we'll
I'd
seek
make
a motion, yeah.
to appoint Michelle as chair of the school committee.
All right, it's been a motion to appoint Michelle Grodzki as chair of the school committee. Are there any seconds?
Second.
Second? I saw Jess Hutchins, second. And discussion? Thank you.
I just want to make sure that if the committee is okay with this, that the administration would be okay with, every other meeting being during the day. I know at one point, someone brought up that it might not be possible for you guys to have that, so before we even consider it as a committee, is that?
It's okay with me. Survey your pleasure. Yeah.
And Marty, you think that would be okay if we, worked agendas so that?
As far as my schedule, I'll speak for myself. I
Right.
think we could coordinate that.
And
That's-
meetings that might involve principals or
Right.
something like that, if we put those at the evening, or if they needed to work during the day, would they be able to, or?
Principal schedules are flexible. Teachers, it might be more of a challenge in cases where we need teachers or groups of teachers, or in cases where teachers might be also members of the public, that could be a challenge. But as far as my schedule, it would be okay, and I haven't heard otherwise from Mr. Mazur, Ms. Bertrand, so, yeah.
The only thing I would add to that is the daytime meetings, I'd want to have an end time. So if we said they're 2-hour meetings, but we'd actually end at that time, just because I'd have to get back to work. So I couldn't, sometimes our meetings go 4 hours. That would be a problem. But I think we should be able to say, we have a 2-hour meeting, try to get the work done in 2 hours, and if we can't, then do it at the next meeting, unless it's something urgent. But the daytime, that's the issue with the daytime, you just have to make sure there's a stop time, which I think we could do. But
And would, if I can ask a clarifying question, when you say daytime, would we be talking mornings or afternoons, or to be determined, I suppose?
Yeah, I think maybe.
I think for me, if I can just jump in, I just can't do it between 4 and 9 more than once a month. So if anything other than that, I can make work. It's just scheduling, it doesn't work during those hours for me.
More discussion? Yeah.
I think as long as we have that end time and that whatever we haven't gotten to, we table for the next meeting, but it would definitely have to have the beginning and end for the day.
And I just wanted to say, not regarding scheduling, but it would be amazing to have Michelle as our chair. She's one of the hardest working, most dedicated people I've ever worked with in a professional setting, and particularly to Longmeadow and to our schools. And it would be incredible and a gift to our community to have her serve as chair. So thank you for offering your time.
Further discussion? Call for a vote, okay. So on the motion is that the school committee appoint Michelle Grodzki as the chair of the school committee for the 2017-2018 school year. All those in favor? 6 in favor, 1 abstention, and none opposed. So with that, we can pass the gavel to Ms. Grodzki.
It's okay, Michelle,
Congratulations.
it's okay. Sure. So then I think we'll move on to the position of vice chair, and I'll do the same as Russ. I'll ask again if anybody is willing to or interested in serving as vice chair.
So I'm gonna make a nomination, if that's okay. I'd like to nominate Russ as vice chair.
Is that I'm sorry, that's not my meeting to run anymore.
I can, is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
power's so hard to let go of.
Marty, you really enjoyed
Yeah,
that. You were very good.
You can take the rest of the
No.
meeting.
You did well. I love how you repeated the motion, too.
Okay.
Like a true
Any
teacher.
discussion?
So that would mean in the summertime, I'd be running the meetings, but that would be it. So I'd be okay with that.
Any other discussion, questions? Okay, then we can take a vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Congratulations. You won again. So now we will
Twice in my
move
life.
on to clerk. And I'll ask again, is anyone interested or willing to serve as the clerk?
Why are you looking
This
at
always
me?
happens.
Well, I circled clerk because I don't exactly know what that role is, so I kind of circled it to ask about.
It's minutes.
Diane, what
Yeah.
exactly does the clerk?
So basically, I take the minutes, then I'll email them to you prior to them going into the school committee packet. You'll review them, you'll have taken your own notes and make sure that it captured what the meeting captured. And once you've approved them, then they go to school committee for approval. But that's just about it.
And probably if we were both out, then.
Yeah, and.
Secretary
yeah,
runs.
Correct. So if Michelle and Russ were not present, you would run a meeting.
Everyone understand that?
Now the camera's on you. Melanie, is that something you would consider, you'd be interested in, you're comfortable with?
Yeah, that's no problem.
Is anybody else interested in serving as clerk?
Stephanie's got the biggest smile of
I
everybody.
know. Praying the whole night. She's like, next, next, next.
Okay, then do we have a nomination?
Oh, I'd like to nominate Melanie Rothstein to be clerk.
It will force me to really pay attention.
Yeah.
Any seconds?
I second.
Any discussion?
Just thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? Abstentions? We have one abstention. Okay.
Oh, myself. Is that me? Would that be me? Okay.
Okay, so we have our reorganization taken care of. We'll move on to correspondence. We have a memo from Dr. Donald Jarvis dated June 1st, 2017 regarding the Student of the Month for May 2017 at the LPVEC Career and Technical Educational Center. Actually, is this usually the clerk that does this? That says the
You
correspondence?
didn't tell me that.
Yeah,
I
that
can
wasn't
keep
in the job
saying it.
description.
The way it was this past year, the chair read it.
Okay.
so.
Melanie, would you like to read?
Do I read the whole thing?
Yep, just word for word as it is on the.
No, it's
Just
on
number
the-
4.
On the handbook
Oh.
agenda.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right.
So I read it wrong all year.
Telling you now.
Thanks, Diane.
You're welcome.
So the first correspondence is a memo from Mr. Donald Jarvis dated June 1st, 2017 regarding the Student of the Month for May 2017 at the is it LPVEC or do you?
Yep.
Yeah.
Career and Technical Education Center. So just continue reading all of
Yep.
them, we don't discuss, okay.
Yep.
Second, an email from Miss Amy Appel dated May 22nd, 2017 regarding the homework guidelines. Next, an email message from Ms. Erin Linville received on May 19, 2017, suggesting the district look at a longer school day for elementary school students and a later start time for high school students.
Next,
That-
we have the approval of the minutes. Is there a motion? Jess?
I move the school committee approve the minutes to the May 23rd, 2017 school committee meeting as presented.
Second, anyone?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, we'll call a vote. All those in favor?
You guys would abstain.
You would, okay. I did read them.
All those opposed? And abstentions? 3 abstentions. Okay. We'll move on to visitor comments. Is there anyone here that would like to speak? No. Okay. Is Michelle here? Should we just
Skip it.
that? Okay. Next, we have our new Blueberry Hill principal here, so we'd like to introduce her. Marty, do you want to take that?
Sure, yeah, and we'll invite Amy up, and if her colleague and new friend, Donna Hutton, would like to join her, you're always welcome as well. But Donna has come out and support. Donna's been in that hot seat before, many times.
I'm not a friend yet.
We're very excited to introduce more formally to the community Ms. Amy Bostian as the new principal of Blueberry Hill. We're looking at a July 1 effective start date, and so we're excited about that, and certainly big shoes to fill following a successful career by Ms. Pratt. But Ms. Bostian comes to us with having a successful career as an elementary regular classroom educator and a special educator, and also experience at the middle level as an administrator, as an assistant principal, and most recently as principal at Thornton Burgess Middle School in Hamden. So Amy went through a rigorous interview process, met with the screening committee, met with the administrative team. We sent a team over to Thornton Burgess that learned some great things about Amy. And then we also hosted Amy here in the district, and she met with staff and some parents as well. So it's been a very thorough vetting process, I'd say. And so we're really happy to welcome Amy onto our administrative team. So welcome to Long Meadow. Yeah.
I, of course, first and foremost, am so excited to be here. It was a very lengthy process, but I think necessary process. This is a wonderful school district that I'm coming from a wonderful school district and coming to a wonderful school district. So I really appreciate the process for which you choose your leadership. So thank you for that. I think it's going to benefit your staff, my staff now, and our students, and certainly the community at large. So, Jessica, you had mentioned some things that I actually wanted to talk about. One of the things that I'm most excited about is the opportunity to collaborate with everyone that I have come into contact with so far. So that ability to collaborate in order to move our school and our kids and our staff forward. And of course, the overall community of Long Meadow. That's wonderful. To do that with the utmost of integrity is absolutely paramount. And it's what I believe in, and it's what I'm good at, and I think I will find a good home here for that. And also the level of professionalism. What I have experienced so far from every member of the community, the staff, even some of the children that I have met has been just wonderful, very professional, very exciting, and I'm very excited. So they are big shoes to fill. I think Mrs. Pratt is amazing, and I hope to learn from her. There will be some time that hopefully I'll be able to have with her, my other colleagues at the elementary and middle and high school level. So learn from her, ask really good questions of the staff, get a pulse on what Blueberry Hill is exceptionally good at, and maybe also a pulse on what they are in need of. So those are important things that I'll be doing within my first few months on the job. So I'm anxious to meet the kids. That's why I got into this work for them. So yeah, I'm very excited, very much looking forward to it. And again, my reception so far from everyone in the community, everyone here, professionals, it's just been very, very exciting and inviting. So thank you for that.
Amy has graciously agreed to face a few questions if there's anything that's on the minds of the committee. So.
Does anyone have any questions for Amy?
I've been asked a lot, so I'm happy to share my responses. But I'll be starting July 1st, which is a Saturday, so that actually I will not be at work on the 1st. But the third Monday, I would love to talk with anyone, any of you, all of you. So please come on in. My door will always be open. I will be set up with email and phone contact within the next few weeks, and I look forward to hearing from you all. So thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you for coming tonight.
Sure.
It's great to see you, and it's great to be able to congratulate you. I know you went through a really rigorous process, as we touched upon, and it was great to be part of that process, and you did a terrific job going through every step of that process and impressed a lot of people So I'm really excited that you're here. I know a lot of people feel the same way. When they visited your school, they were blown away by your success. And I really look forward to you bringing that to Blueberry Hill School. I have 2 children who went through the school and 1 who's still there. I also attended Blueberry Hill School as a child, so it's near and dear to my heart. Marie Pratt is a very special person, and she has dedicated so much of herself and selflessly in her time to this community for a long time, and she will be missed. But I know you're going to be great. People are excited, and I just wanted to say thank you, and don't listen to anything anyone says about the Blueberry Hill parents. Okay?
It's all been wonderful right now.
Okay, that's okay.
That's fine, yeah.
Welcome.
Great,
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
So I have one question actually for both of you though. What are we doing over the summer? 'Cause I'm guessing that parents might want to meet with you or potentially.
Yeah, so as Amy said, we'll have her soon set up with a district email, and she'll be up and running on Monday, July 3rd. And I'll get some communication out to the community that will include Amy's email, and I know that Amy will want to write a letter to the Blueberry community as well, inviting them into, we talked about office hours and things like that, over the summer, so.
I've started that letter too. I'll have, Mr. O'Shea take a look at it.
Okay.
But it does have some different times and locations actually for parents to come by with their kids. You have to bring your children, and the teachers as well. So also engaging teachers over the summer. So
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was
Okay.
just not sure if we were going to have like a set day or something, or if it was going to be more.
Like a meet and greet event?
Yeah.
A coffee or something?
I think we were
Not that
thinking.
we need to do it, I was
Yeah,
just
we were
wondering
thinking
what we're
more that Amy would extend the invitation and carve out some times in her schedule over the
Okay.
summer to invite parents and staff and with their and
Yeah.
children in as well.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
we'll get that out soon.
That's a nice idea,
Yeah.
though, too, to do like an ice cream social or something.
that's in my letter. Yeah. So
Maybe that's where I got the idea, is when you did the draft
I
letter.
did, yeah.
That is where I got it. That's so funny.
That's
Ice cream
great.
social.
That's a great idea.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. So setting up some social events for
Maybe-
for folks to come in, and there would be some time for parents and some time for teachers and some parents, and then the kids to just, we can play basketball. It's one of my favorite things to do with kids and hang out. So yeah, absolutely.
Sounds good.
But formally scheduled, so we're going to put it on the calendar.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
And thank you to the entire search committee and to Marty for leading such a great search, and the teachers that found her and everybody that contributed to bringing you here. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the superintendent's report.
No formal report this evening. I did prepare some materials for later in your meeting.
Okay. I have nothing new to report. We'll skip over Anisha. Any other reports that anyone has from any subcommittees?
I don't think we have any.
No, finance did not meet, food services didn't meet. Okay. So we'll move on to finance subcommittee. We did not meet, however, with the election. You will now need to appoint a member to sign the biweekly payroll warrants and the accounts payable warrants. School committee is allowed under the Municipal Modernization Act to designate one of its members to review and approve warrants. MASC suggests appointing a backup person in case of a conflict of interest, such as the appointed person receiving a reimbursement on a warrant or unavailability. So I think this was what John used to do, the biweekly payroll, accounts payable. And I did the warrants. I'm not able to do the warrants over the summer, so I'd be happy to pick them up again if need be, but we'd need someone to fill in for me over the summer as well. So, and those can be 2 different people. So one person can do the warrants and one person can do the payroll, or somebody can do them all together.
So just on the warrants, and Michelle's done it, thank you for the last year or so. It requires usually somebody to come in every other week is the approximate time period, and it takes half hour to an hour depending upon the volume of invoices we're paying on that particular warrant. So there's a journal with the vendor and the amount, and it's a verification process of what's being paid. on behalf of the committee, and then authorizing the warrant and checks to be issued and mailed. And the payroll is much more simplistic. It is a document, about a 30-page document that totals the payroll for that 2-week period, and a cover sheet basically authorizing the superintendent, myself, both also authorize the payroll warrant, and it's basically, again, on behalf of the school committee authorizing the payroll. So it's a much quicker process. It's really just a signature and verification of the total.
And Tom would walk anyone through it.
How often is the payroll?
Payroll's every 2 weeks, so that time period is a little more set. It usually is the Monday or Tuesday before the payroll week, but it is definitely on an every 2-week period.
Is there a window, like?
Yeah, it's not like hard. You have to have it done by a certain time. The town issues the checks. They most certainly would even release them if this wasn't signed in time, but it still has to get signed and on record with the town. But anywhere from usually like Monday morning through Tuesday at the end of business.
And is that through the summer too?
Yes.
Stephanie wants to do it. I can tell.
Well, I feel badly.
Yes, it would start next
Yeah, it would
week.
start next week, so it would be next Monday or Tuesday.
Okay, and then would we have a backup, like a backup for that?
I can be your backup.
Okay, just in case, like.
I'd be willing to do
Okay,
that too.
okay, because
if you wanna
summer,
split it.
okay.
The law is a little unclear in Russ. I don't know if you've run into it.
With the backup?
Yeah,
Okay.
they haven't really gave any real ruling on whether or not you can or cannot have a backup. I know some districts do, some districts don't.
So what do you do if you're on vacation during?
You would
that?
have to plan and authorize somebody else for that particular payroll period. So if you knew there were particular weeks
Okay.
you wouldn't be available, the committee would have to authorize somebody else.
But then the committee has to meet to authorize?
No,
that?
we could do it now, like if we knew or...
I'd just do it back
Why
up.
don't we just have a motion for a backup tonight? Yeah, I thought it was on the agenda. I'm sorry.
It is.
I thought it was too.
I don't see
It's
it.
backup for the warrant.
For the warrants.
Yeah.
Because the law was unclear for the payroll, I didn't
And we-
bring a backup.
And we did not have one this year. John was the only one authorized.
Oh, I see.
But if you guys want to authorize one, fine by me.
Okay, so we'll just have the same.
Well, we might as well do it because something happens, we'd have to go and vote on it anyway, so.
No, we shouldn't need to
Right.
do that.
Okay. So
Can
then,
we just combine
is
the
there,
motion?
does someone want to make a motion?
So you're saying you'll do both?
Wait, what?
Do you want to, let's break them into two things, right? Or,
You want to have two
I
different
think it's
people do it?
clear, whether it's the same person, I just think two motions
Oh, okay.
that are in the minutes recorded as to the authorization would make sense.
And it sounds like we have three
The same
people that
person
are
is
willing to
fine.
do something.
Yeah.
Could you do it at the same time?
Why am I
If one
always
is
with
just
that?
totaling and approving and then do your warrants?
There are times they may line up, not always though. There are times when there might be a 3-week gap between the warrants, which then will throw it off from the payroll cycle.
This is the warrant one with a backup. That's the payroll.
Oh, okay, got it. I
It's just
see.
two, but.
Okay.
so.
I can do
so-
payroll with a backup, and then we'll do warrant separate.
Okay, so let's start with, let's see, what's the first motion? Someone want to make the first motion, which is the warrants.
So I move the school committee designate Stephanie Jasmine to review and approve warrants.
Nope, payroll.
Payroll.
Oh,
That's fine.
okay.
Is that right, Michelle? You're
Sure,
gonna-
do that.
Yeah.
Yep.
For sheets for the FY 2018 school year.
With a backup.
With a backup person of
I can be a backup.
Sure.
Okay.
Karen Moran.
Karen?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
And Tom, you'll get me the dates for that?
Yes, I can
Okay.
send them to both of you. And
Okay.
then we'll email you that it's ready, and if you
Okay.
can't make it, then we'll contact Karen.
And there's usually like a one Monday or Tuesday, and that.
Yeah, and we'll tell you even before, like the Friday, the payroll sheets will be ready Monday morning, so you can stop in at your leisure.
Okay.
Okay, so any more discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. So now we need to move to the warrants. That was the payroll. So is there a motion? Or raise your hand if you're interested in doing the payroll, or the warrants. Sorry.
I'll
Yeah.
take over for John and
Okay.
do the warrants.
Okay. Does someone want to make a motion?
Do we have a backup? Anyone interested in
I can be
being
the
the backup? Okay.
That keeps it
Okay.
simple.
I move that the school committee designate Beth Barron to review and approve the warrants and to appoint Karen Moran as her backup.
Yes. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. All right. So during the last school committee meeting, school committee approved use of end-of-the-year funds. One of the items, the floor auto scrubbers, has a revised quote of $40,000 for the purchase of 4 refinishers. The school committee approved the use of $15,000 for this purchase on May 23rd. The school committee is being asked to additionally approve $25,000 from end-of-the-year funds.
So I'm happy to speak to this. So tonight at your seats is a financial report. It's this long legal page document, and for the new members, it tries to project what our FY17 budget may have, and that would be in the 2 gray columns to the right of each page. And basically, this is a detailed line item budget with activity through June 5th, and my best guesstimates of where things may pan out through the remainder of the fiscal year. So based on the approvals that school committee gave us on May 23rd, we anticipate having approximately $80,000 remaining. If those funds are not spent, the money would then revert back to the town. As Michelle mentioned at our May 23rd meeting, the school committee authorized the purchase of 4 auto scrubbers. Dan McCarthy is here, the facilities director, and there was, so I apologize because there was some miscommunication between Dan and myself in terms of the dollar amount that we needed. This committee authorized 15, it ended up being 40. And so I don't have the funds available to make the necessary purchase. The machines would be placed at 4 schools, the 3 elementaries in Glenbrook. We piloted the machine this year over at Williams. It helps reduce the stripping of floors during the summertime and would be available to be used during holiday breaks if there was enough manpower available to do some floor refinishing. So the head custodian at Williams appreciates the machine, felt it helped to really move things along in terms of their summer cleaning, and so we thought we would move it forward and have one now at each of the schools, except the high school because they are not required to strip their floors. So I apologize that I'm here asking for additional funding for this purchase, but I didn't feel it was fair to buy just one and have to give it to one of the 4 schools. So since we have the funds, I felt I would come back and ask for your consideration of appropriating an additional $25,000.
So, do you have a motion?
I had a question. So did that allow us at Williams, did it avoid overtime, or they were able to get other things done? Is that kind of the?
Also, you're not using a stripper anymore, so I don't know if you've ever seen them strip floors before. You're pouring emulsifier, I guess, on the floors, and they take down. It's very hazardous to the guys that are always, not always, but susceptible to spills a lot. So this gets rid of that. And instead of going down 5 coats, you're going down those top 2. So you can keep it, like Tom was saying, during the year, you can add it again. You keep doing more wax and keep it more mirror finish. We tried it at Williams. We had success there. He was raving about it, how he can, one custodian goes ahead and moves everything out. He strips, they go behind, put the wax on. It was a very fluid process. And he was very, very positive about it. So we had a meeting with all the other custodians, and they seemed to have a buy-in for it. So we're going to go that route and try not to buy any stripper anymore and try to keep the guys from falling when they're putting stuff down. So that's what we're looking to do.
Is this something that falls under the town, like for the maintenance, or this is the responsibility of the schools to pick up?
I would probably say that it would fall under the town, but an expenditure of this size, they usually would not necessarily have this kind of money to make this type of purchase on a regular basis. So since we have it and we have identified it as a benefit to the staff, we felt it would be appropriate to use some of the school funds instead of just turning them back to the town at this time.
Is it also, when we talk about revenue that we've gotten from activities at the high school and it can only be used in a certain way, is this one of the ways that that money can be used?
Yeah, definitely. In terms of building rental, when we take in rental fees, it is used to maintain the building. So some of the balance most certainly could be used for this purpose. We do utilize it to hire summer staff to assist in the cleaning during the summertime. But yeah, it could be if that was the desire of the committee.
I have a question, just because I wasn't here I wasn't a member at the May 23rd meeting, so I'm jumping between both agendas. So just maybe Tom can speak to this as a point of clarification. So initially, it was listed as 30,000 and moved to 15,000. So it stayed at 15,000, and now we're asking to move it back to 40,000.
That is correct.
And
So
is that a recurring kind of cost, or is this a one-time?
It's a one-time for the equipment.
Years.
The only recurring expense would be for the pads
Correct.
that are used on the machine.
Okay.
It would help eliminate some other product that we do have to buy every summer for stripping the floors. So I would expect the recurring costs actually to be less with the machines than the product we have to buy every summer.
Okay, but I'm correct in the figures jumping back and forth.
That
That's
is
how it
correct.
went. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Any other questions? Does anybody want to make a motion?
I move that the school committee authorize the additional use of FY17 general fund in the amount of $25,000 to purchase the 4-floor auto scrubbers.
Second?
Second.
Any more discussion?
I feel like it makes sense. We could turn the money back to the town, ask the town to cover it, or, so we might as well.
I agree. I like your line of thinking on that, Tom. Thank you. And thank you, Dan.
If there are no more questions, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. Also, during the May 23rd meeting, Mr. Mazza did not have an estimate for the carpet replacements at Williams and Glenbrook Middle Schools. At the time of this writing, we still do not have the estimate. However, we are putting in the following motion as a placeholder.
So, also at your seat tonight is a document that has a dollar amount of $28,497. Expanding on just the Glenbrook and Williams piece, was Dan had conversations with the principals at Blueberry Center and Wolf Swamp, who have also identified some areas where there are some fraying of seams and creating some trip hazards and concerns. So instead of limiting the request to just the two middle schools, I expanded it to include the areas that the principals have identified. Dan worked with a local carpet vendor that we have used for the last number of years, who is on state contract, who would be able to do the work over the course of the last 7 days once school gets out and before June 30th. So, the breakdown in terms of each school and the location is in here for your consideration.
What's the
So, Jess?
What's the installation date? It would be all at the same time?
It would probably be, and Dan, I don't know if you can speak to this better, I don't know that they're going to be able to do all of it on the same day. It would probably be over the course of a week and a
Over the
half to
summer.
2 weeks.
Over the summer?
No, well, in late June,
Right.
because we'd be using FY17 funds, so. they're
Can
gonna
we
get
do it after the students are out of school?
Okay.
Yes, it
The
would be
reason-
after school gets out.
The reason I'm asking is because, obviously, you know what I'm going to say.
No, there will no carpet removal during school time.
Yeah, it's not just the removal, but then the replacement of new carpet and new glue, off gases a lot.
So it's all happening after
After
school?
the
So
beginning.
Okay.
The 22nd through the 30th of June.
I just want to make sure that it's done once kids are out of school would be ideal, and that the areas are well ventilated over the summer.
That's right.
Thanks, Dan.
Yep.
Is there a motion, Russ?
Yep. I move that the school committee authorize the additional use of FY17 general fund in the amount of $28,497 to purchase the replacement carpeting at Williams and Glenbrook Middle Schools, and as listed on the carpet replacement request document.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
I just want to say one thing
Oh,
before we vote.
sorry.
I'm going to vote in favor of this. I just really do hope that we can start moving away from carpeting and start finding other, down the line, affordable, durable materials that is not carpeting. I do hope we can. I know that some areas for acoustics, it's ideal, but there are always alternatives, and carpeting just has so many issues, not only with the installation issues that I mentioned, but also ongoing issues because it holds in so much dirt and grime, and it requires a lot of upkeep. So I do hope we'll start to sort of shift. I know that public schools have done carpeting for a very, very long time. That's my little soapbox. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay.
Is there any more discussion? Okay, we'll call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, there is no report for policies. Thanks, Dan.
Bye, Dan. Thank you.
Okay, and next we'll move on to ongoing business. The meeting schedule discussion. So I guess we need to, the committee will discuss meeting days and times for the 2017-18 school year. Did everyone bring their calendars to talk about it? As a point of information, this past school year, school committee met on the second and fourth Tuesday evenings at 6:00 p.m. each month. So, as I mentioned before, I need to at least move one of them to the daytime or not during the hours of 9. Does anyone want to open up discussion about this? Jess?
Yep, I just wanted to say at the outset of this discussion that scheduling doesn't fall under the open meeting law restrictions, so it's, certainly, I put it on the agenda tonight just to get the conversation started, but I don't want anyone to feel like we have to make a decision tonight, because it's okay to go back and forth with emails and phoning in terms of working out the schedule. And last year, we took some time. It took some time to sort of accommodate everyone's schedules. So I just wanted to put that out there, that, however much or little people want to talk about is okay tonight.
So, Russ?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. We could kind of state what we know we can't do, or what would be maybe best and worst if we have preferences. So I know for me, Tuesday ended up being like the worst possible day for me to meet, because all my clients meet on Tuesday nights, the school committees around here. So really Monday or potentially Wednesday or Thursday, but Tuesdays just are horrible for me. And the other thing is I had a real hard time getting here at 6. So 7 was definitely better. And the daytime, I can make that work as long as we have a stop time. So that's.
Okay, Jess?
I think Wednesdays were our target last year when we kind of started off the conversation. And the reason we moved the meetings off of Mondays was because, I think Wednesday's a good day. If it works for people, I think it's a good day. Just for a little history, we moved it off of Monday because when you get the agenda right before the weekend, when I was on the committee before, one of the things that really stuck with me was that you're cramming over the weekend for a Monday meeting, and then you're cramming on Monday to get in touch with admin with questions and peppering them with questions and Diane. So moving it off the weekends was incredibly valuable, I felt, and anyone else who's on the committee can speak to their experience, because it gave us a little more breathing room. We were able to focus. I felt I was able to focus on my family and my children during the weekend and really compartmentalize that. And I think that's so important as a school committee member to have that freedom, because they didn't have it before. And then Monday and Tuesday, to have that focus to communicate and to meeting prep. So that's just the history. But I think Wednesday would be great if that worked for people. I'm flexible.
Okay. And hours, do you have any restrictions for hours, or?
No, I just would say with the meeting scheduling, I think that the 6 o'clock, hour, if we're talking evening, worked better, because again, the old meetings used to go late, and especially in the winter when it gets dark and the weather's terrible, it's brutal to try to focus late at night. So I found that this year, at least just shifting, and I'm not stuck on 6 o'clock, but shifting it a little earlier made a really big difference in terms of efficiency and quality of discussion and quality of life for everyone in the committee, just that 1 hour shift, so.
Stephanie?
It wasn't always easy.
So my schedule is a little bit up in the air right now, but Wednesdays I think would be good. Daytime, as long as there's a stop time, I can work around that. 6 was very tough. I made it work for the most part, maybe a few minutes late, but as a compromise, maybe 6:30. So.
Melanie?
Is the release of the packet fluid, or is that always on Thursday? In other words, if that came out earlier in the week, would Mondays then work?
We have to get it to you 48 hours beforehand, at least, and very often Diane gets it out even before that. But
Yeah, but we're gonna have to adjust our cutoff for so if you're making your meeting Wednesdays instead of Tuesdays, last year we had the cutoff on Thursday that I tried to, so if you make it Wednesday, I'll make it Friday, and then probably producing it Friday or Monday.
Which
So
that
it's
would
like
not
a
be good.
5-day?
If it was
Yeah,
Monday and we had to
you
do
can't-
Wednesday.
You can't make the packet too far in advance
Right.
to a meeting, because then there's other things that'll come along that'll need to be on that agenda. So I will adjust my schedule to whatever you determine.
I think so, yeah. So if you moved it, if it worked for Monday, you'd be able to, that would give you enough time to get it out.
Yeah, the meetings have to be posted 48 hours in advance, so the agenda would have to be set. If you had your meeting on Wednesday, we'd have to post the meeting on Monday. And if Monday was a holiday, we'd have to do it the Friday before.
So the week,
Go ahead.
so that week of planning as chair last year was really great and ideal for me. That doesn't mean it's ideal for everyone, but it felt really comfortable. I felt like if we had issues that we needed to bat back and forth, there was flexibility sort of within that week. So I don't know, somehow it just really delineated the deadlines well. And the one other thing about Monday, sometimes people go away for the weekend and aren't always back. That was another thing we discussed last year too.
Or holidays, maybe?
In holidays, cancellations and schedules, yeah.
Okay.
So Melanie, were there any restrictions for
No.
your schedule or anything?
No.
Okay.
Just trying to understand how it works.
Beth, do you want to?
I'm fine with the Wednesday. I understand a lot of the concerns with the Monday, when the 3-day weekends roll around. I'm flexible as far as the day of the week.
Okay.
I think as a compromise, maybe the 6:30 time, if we're gonna push back a little bit. I think moving from the 7 to the 6 was ideal. I'm not really sure the merits of moving back to the 7 o'clock. Like Jess said, a lot of the discussion goes late into the evening, and maybe as a compromise, 6:30 would work more.
Okay.
It seemed like 6 was a struggle for some, so maybe that's something that can be discussed. And I'm not sure, will there be more discussion on the split? Are we trying to do one
Well,
daytime meeting and one evening meeting?
I'll open up that for, anyone.
Later?
Daytime works great for me, evening is tough, so that's where I said I could just do
Okay.
one a month. If there's anybody that wants them all of the time during the day, I think the rest of you wanted half and half, or
Well, I
what
know-
would be better, I guess.
I guess my concern
Yeah.
is parents and teachers, and I know that there's probably people who live stream the meetings, so I'm wondering the implications on all of those different scenarios. When we do bring in principals and we award things to students, how it seems like you're kind of heavy loading one agenda and then freeing up the daytime agenda. So I'm not really sure how all that works. I'm certainly open to trying things. I'm not saying shut the door on that. I'm just saying I don't know exactly how that will all play out for people who, I don't know how prohibitive it is for people on the committee who have daytime jobs. You're technically always missing one meeting a month.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. So I think to do it, we would have to make it regular too, because people are going to want to know. So if we do, every other meeting is nighttime, and then we do daytime, like the PTOs kind of do. You might actually capture more people that way possibly, but you're right that sometimes we have events that are just, they have to be nighttime. Sometimes those nights feel like that's all we do, too. So it's almost better if we split those two things, have the presentations one night and then do the other business in the day. But I do think we have to make it regular because people need to know, you know, if it's the first Wednesday is always the daytime one and the third Wednesday is always the nighttime one, or whatever we decide. But it should be consistent, I think, if we're going to try it.
Did you have anything else to add?
No, that was it.
Karen?
I'm pretty flexible, so I could do daytime or evening. I think 6:30 is definitely a good compromise. Yeah, because when you see the meetings that are going so late into the night, everybody gets a little punchy.
The
Yeah,
goal
so
is
if
not
we
to do that
Right.
anymore.
We're going to try for
Marty can't
2-hour
talk anymore.
meetings.
And Jess is out, so.
So this is this one of those things that I agree, I think it needs to be scheduled so people can rely on it in their own schedules, but let's just say you started it and it was not working out well, it was really a struggle for people. Is this something that we could come back and change at a later date? Or is like the schedule set, it's in the calendar and that's done?
Well, you try to set it because Diane will kill us if we don't.
That is exactly what I was thinking.
But we should. There's so many other events that. So I'm thinking maybe what we do is we just have Diane and Michelle take a stab at the calendar for the year, like we have in the past, and then we get it later and look at it, see if it works. But they usually schedule it 12 months out, so it's.
Yeah, I like to tell LCPD when we're going to be having our meetings, because they need to book their staff, and to tell the town, so that they already put it out on their calendar, that even though the agenda's not there, at least they have the date out on the website. Are we going to stick with the off week of select board? So you're going to be the second and fourth week of the month?
That works for me.
Okay.
So, I think, in terms of, Jess? Do we have motions, or?
No,
I was just gonna-
No, you don't need a motion.
What if we, yeah, we don't need a motion.
I'm just
I think we
curious
should
as to
stay
what-
on the second and fourth for sure.
And then your daytime meeting, if we made it, say, the first meeting of the month, and then the
Yeah.
evening meeting, the second meeting of the month, and then we just need to get you to narrow down AM or PM.
What if we, I'm just gonna throw this out there, what if we, for discussion, we could do, the first Wednesday, we could do 12 to 2, and then the second Wednesday, we could do 6:30. So that's
Does
my
anybody
thought.
else want to speak to that? Does that work?
Can you
I
just
like-
say
So
that?
the first Wednesday, so the second Wednesday of the month would be 12 to 2
Okay,
PM, and then the fourth Wednesday of the month would be 6:30
got it.
to 8:30. No,
Yep.
Mhm. That's what I want.
6:30, 8:30?
12 to 2, yeah.
Or
we'll-
9, but
we'll shoot
yeah.
for that, and,
Depending on how much we talk.
We'll try to be as efficient as we can during the meetings so that we can get out of here. So how does that sound to everyone? Does that, am I hearing that's agreeable for everyone?
I know, I'm getting a note passed to me about 6:15.
No,
I don't,
just-
no, I don't, I mean, I was gonna ask Russ, because I think we're the two that are trying to make the evening. You wanna, is 6:30 better?
Yeah, it'd be a little better. I mean, it's really just getting my kids, getting back from meetings and then getting my kids
Getting out
back
the
from
door.
like soccer and stuff like that. But I think 6:30 would be better.
Better than 6:15.
Yep.
So definitely for you guys, no.
Because usually practices end at like 6, so 6:30 I could run them back and come back here. It's just trying to balance family life, so I'm not going
I know, I hate
totally
to
doing nothing at home.
lose that whole half an hour, because it
But-
worked so well, but I know it's a crunch time. That's why I was saying if 6:15 was civilized for you guys, but it sounds like it's not, so if it's not, it's not.
I don't think the 15 minutes is gonna kill the meeting, but I think it might kill us.
Yeah, that's what I'm that's what I'm hearing.
So why don't we, since we have a general framework, why don't we start with 6:30, and then if things change, we can push it back to 6, or 6:15 or something, if you guys speak to us.
Yeah, and
tell
we
us
have
that-
had meetings go early, like when
Yeah.
we've had people present, we've had them earlier. So, yeah,
Okay.
there's flexibility
The only
there.
problem is people expect a certain start time, and I would say that that is beneficial, so I think it would be good to just commit to the
Solid
6:30 and
6:30.
stick with it, unless there's extenuating circumstances, like we have exceptionally long agenda, and maybe Michelle says, look, we really need to start a little earlier on this particular evening.
Yep.
But to have a regular time, I think, is important.
Well, and again, we can start with 6:30, and then if halfway through the year we
Right,
want to
right.
reassess
Right.
and change it. I didn't mean like every meeting.
Right.
I just meant, as a whole.
That makes sense, yeah.
So Diane, do you think that's enough for you to, and I to go? Okay. So we'll move on to the student handbooks. School committee was presented with the changes recommended for the 2017-2018 handbooks during the last school committee meeting. Marty, do you want to?
Yeah, so I had maybe to tighten up some of the discussion that we had last meeting, and maybe to assist our new members with the handbook revision process. Just want to offer a couple of thoughts. I think what I'm hoping I can demonstrate to the committee, to our newest members, is that we've got a sort of a revision process in place, and there's always room for growth and improvement in these things. I think we took some important steps this year by tightening up the involvement of the school councils. That was kind of a direction that the school committee had given me at the beginning of the year, and so that's something we talked to the administrators about early on, to make sure that the school councils were regularly involved. I apologize, we seem to have been kicked off here. This will be one of our improvement goals next year, to make sure
Never
that
happens.
it never happens, right? So give me 1 second. Let's see if I can pull this back up. Let's try again. Okay. So, I'll do it quickly before we lose the screen. So the handbook revision process, to start with, suggest that it obviously all has to happen inside of federal and state law, and with the committee and with our administrative team, with our attorneys, the advisories, the conferences that we go to, we try to make sure that we're up to date with the latest statutes. And then inside of that framework is the policy of the school committee. So it's, obviously our handbooks have to operate within the framework that is established by the school committee policy manual. And so that's something that is an important influence on the handbook process. And as school committee policy changes, we have to amend our handbooks in a corresponding way. I especially want to talk a little bit about the LHS handbook revision process, because I think that's where we saw some of the questions at the last meeting, and kind of, again, suggest that if there are some lingering concerns that you have about our handbooks, that, we certainly can kind of feed those concerns into the revision process, that will be ongoing. So I'd start with the role of the school council, and I think our administrative team was pretty tight with the involvement of the council. At the high school, there's 4 parents, some teachers and students, administrators represented. They were engaged in reviewing the manual. They took proposal revisions and voted on the handbook, and that happened over the course of 4 different meetings. Certainly, the school committee policy framework, again, that should be an important part of that revision loop, is the work of the school committee. I sat with Tom Landers, talked about, how do you target areas for improvement. He suggested to me that there's regular data reviews, that they are regularly looking at attendance data, tardiness data, bullying data, detentions, et cetera, et cetera. So, we all get frustrated by the state requirements relating to the data reports, but one of the good things that's come out of it is that it's kind of tightened our attention to the disciplinary data that we gather. So that's been helpful to us. One of the things that the high school does that really goes above and beyond what I'm accustomed to, certainly, is that they have a handbook committee. It's a student handbook committee. They actually send an email blast out to all the students saying, hey, do you have anything that you think should be considered for our handbook? They meet regularly, 7 meetings. Paul Dunkerley runs this, and they come back with revisions that were reflected in the handbook that was presented last week. There is also faculty involvement. For the longest time, the high school has had an administrative connecting team. This is a formal way that the faculty works with the administration to ensure that their voice is heard as well. There is a youth risk behavior survey. I'd love at some point to bring the results of that to the committee. We've been engaged in this for a number of years now, and so we've got some good trend data around some of the risky behaviors our kids are involved with. It might be, kind of good information for the committee to look at some point. That informs the handbook committee, and then, of course, regular ongoing parent feedback is also involved in that process. So it's from that mix, from that framework that we produced the handbook that was presented. I would also point out that the law, and unless Russ has information I'm not aware of, the law is kind of silent on handbooks K-8, but the state law has explicitly said that by statute, every school containing grades 9 to 12 has to prepare a student handbook. And the principal and the school council have to be involved in the preparation and the publication of that. So that's kind of where we are. To the high school administration's credit, they went through that process. There were some questions at the last meeting, and there's certainly some things that we can, again, feed back into that process going forward. There might be topics that the school committee wants to take up through its policy subcommittee and through the work of the whole committee. There's also some cleanup stuff, just grammatical stuff that we want to pay close attention to as well. So that's where we are. So we're hoping that the committee will, my recommendation would be that the handbook as it was presented be approved. We also have the issue of the elementary handbooks, which the main change there related to the inclusion of the guiding principles into the elementary handbook. So that's where we are. I think the committee wanted some additional time with the handbooks before it voted, and so I hope that's helpful. Gives you kind of a bird's eye view of the process, at least, that we use. So that's it.
Are we, the motion that's, I believe, is to approve the changes, but not the full handbook?
No, the motion is to approve the whole handbook. We're given the changes as a courtesy so that we understand what's different from year to year, but the
Okay.
approval technically is the entire handbook.
So by making, the motion to approve the changes is a motion to approve the entire handbook?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll probably read it a little different.
Okay, you'll change it.
I move that the school committee accept the changes to the elementary student handbooks, middle school student handbooks, and high school student handbooks as presented, and to incorporate them into the existing handbooks.
So you're gonna change. Are you
Second.
making? Okay. good.
Discussion?
Yeah.
Stephanie?
So, I concentrated largely on the high school handbook because it's a high stakes handbook. That things that happen to kids in high school are on record, they're going to college. And I think, as was said, there's some cleaning up that needs to be done within the handbook, making sure our procedures are in line with state and federal law, and just kind of cleaning it up and making sure each reflects accurately the other. But then, in addition to that, there's some things that are concerning. One of them is a 10% deduction in a term grade for skipping class, some of the detentions. I have, and I met with Marty to go through all of them, The problem, I think, is the process that we have and what we do when there are issues with the handbook. Because it comes to us in the spring, we're voting on it at the end of the year. If there are concerns that come up, because ultimately we vote on it, and if an issue comes up and a grievance comes up, we voted on it. Accepted the policy as it's written in the handbook. What do we do to bring it back to the school council, say, can you take a look at this and bring it back to us? Because we're at the end of the year, we need a handbook for the fall. So I think the process might need some examination so that we do have the opportunity to send it back to the school council, maybe so we have a representative from policy sub working with them. I mean, the overall goal of it is to have a handbook that, that we all agree on and everybody's happy with. And I think that it needs some revision and cleaning up.
I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I think that's a good idea. Maybe in the summer meetings that we have, which are pretty light agenda-wise, we could talk about the process to whatever our feedback is. We can get it to the school council, administration, maybe through a policy subcommittee, but we could talk about that, I would think.
Because ultimately, we need that high school handbook in the fall to start off, because I know they sign off on it. So what's the latest that, or do we...
Oh, you're talking for this year.
Do we approve, or, the problem is that we've gone another year. This was brought up last year. We've gone another year with a handbook that I have problems with, and then we're gonna push it off another year. So I feel like we need a strategy, a process in place to get this where it needs to be.
I think I've had situations where there's been some pressing issue that required an amendment to the handbook mid-year. So that's not out of the question that couldn't be done, as long as you put families on notice about what the changes are, and as long as you can incorporate the changes into the sort of existing academic year. Some changes you can, some changes you sort of have to wait until a new academic year rolls around. But certainly you could make it more fluid, I suppose, where if there was some significant change that you didn't want to wait on, you could introduce it mid-year, just do a good job of advising everyone on what that change is. But,
Stephanie, you asked when the latest would be. Is this electronic or is this printed?
Well, then we had a
electronic?
discrepancy between the electronic version and the printed version. So I hadn't, online, I printed everything out and went through it, and the electronic version differed from the hard copy on a pretty significant due process and appeals issue that said something completely different.
And Stephanie pointed that out. There was something that they were going to take down the electronic version, reformat it, and make sure that it was identical to the printed version. So that will.
Which one was
the printed version was the more accurate. The school committee approved one. There was some language about the appeals process, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
So that needed to be fixed.
So that's out of the print. Okay.
Yeah, so that Mr. Landers assures me that they were going to take down that electronic version and then put up the printed version with the changes if they're approved by the school committee.
How many printed copies do we have? What's
I think
distributed?
if I remember correctly, they give the 9th graders a hard copy
Okay.
only.
Okay. Do we need to do that even?
Yeah, can we not do that?
The last advice we got, going back a few years, was that would be a good practice. The attorneys advised us that would be a good practice to give at least the 9th graders a hard copy. Now, maybe the thinking has changed on that. I think it's a good practice, but it may be that there's new ways of looking at that are kind of acceptable in the legal world, I suppose.
Jess?
I mean, as long as we run it by the lawyer, I really don't think it's going to be any sort of legal issue. I don't even think we really need to, but if people are concerned, we certainly could. I don't think it's worth the paper to print out, all of the paper, the energy, the money, the time that goes into that, in addition to the concerns Stephanie had about consistency, just streamlined, so everything's online.
So that it makes it, you can make changes sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then things won't be outdated
We could get some advice from that, from our attorney to find out if they're still telling us whether or not a hard copy is advisable. I think the high school would probably welcome, the opportunity to distribute it electronically. I don't know if I'm looking to Sue and Tom to see if they have heard otherwise, or if there's been any recent discussion on that, so.
You always have to have a certain amount of hard copies for people who don't have devices at home to read them on. but-
Sure.
So we can leave them in the office
Yeah.
like they do
Sure.
at the town hall. or-
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Jess?
But just to continue, thank you, Marty.
Yep.
I share all of Stephanie's concerns. I know you both have communicated a lot. I know you both are continuing to communicate with each other and with Tom Landers, and I want to be part of that, and certainly the policy subcommittee can be in there. I think the thing that stands out for me overall that Stephanie touched on is the process. We need to back up the deadlines so that I don't want to feel next year sort of what Stephanie said, that, okay, it's spring and we have to make a decision. And I'm also concerned about the amount of parent feedback that's gathered. I would really love to see the school council put out a survey to parents, because to me, that's one interest group that's really, I didn't see represented anywhere. And it would be a good way to sort of really get that information from families and then, make an educated decision about what to do with it.
I will definitely pass that along to Tom Landers. The other thing that we talked about was being very purposeful in terms of telling the community, this is your school council, these are the parents that are on the school council. And if you, as a parent, if you have any ideas, thoughts, suggestions on the handbook, this is a vehicle that you can use. I certainly can pass along the idea about a survey to their school council. I wouldn't want to tell the council
What to do.
What to do
No, it's not,
necessarily, but,
I understand.
yeah.
Like I said, it's a suggestion,
Yeah.
and what I really want to see, or would hope to see, is more, just gathering more feedback. But the way that school councils work in Long Meadow, it's just not efficient in terms of the parents who are represented on those committees and really being able to gather feedback. It really has to be done by the council. So, like Blueberry Hill School, we do a survey once a year, and sometimes we focus on special issues that come up, like homework or multiculturalism or something. But we really do it annually, and we've kind of tweaked it over the years. But that's the way that we've gotten really good feedback, and it's anonymous, which does help people too to feel free to say what they want to say. And I don't know what the high school has in place because my daughter's just starting next year, but I don't want to rely on the school council parents because it just doesn't work.
Anybody else want to ask questions or pipe in here? I know the old members have been hashing away at it, so Stephanie?
We have another meeting this month, is that right?
Yeah,
I just,
me too. It's the 27th.
27.
Yes, although unless we move it to the 28th, but yeah, currently it's 6 o'clock on the 27th I have. Is that what you have?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, I know I met with Marty, there are things on here that go beyond just, should there be 2 detentions listed on here, how specific do you get in terms of consequences? There's bigger things here, like the educational quality part on here is antiquated, it needs updating. I could not, in good faith, vote on this without some, at least changes to some, making sure that our laws and policies are up to date on here and that wording is correct. And so I'm wondering if we can, I'm not sure who's going to be on policy sub, but between now and our next meeting, if we could really hash out the big stuff and then bring that to the next meeting to vote on it.
My only concern is, again, being respectful of the school council and that whole process that they've gone through. If the committee makes changes to the handbook, I would want to go back to the school council. I think I wouldn't want to underestimate the role that they played in that, and I understand they probably could gather data better, but they were invested in that, in the Student Handbook Committee and the Faculty Advisory Committee, and if there are changes to it, that the committee, if the framework changes, if the school committee changes policy, we'll change the handbook accordingly. And, what I'm saying is we can make changes to the handbook mid-year, particularly if we're not going to distribute hard copies. Put everybody on notice on what those changes are. I'm thinking about the timeline. If we wait till the 27th of July or 28th of July, we won't have a new school council seated until the end of September at best, middle of September.
So,
Yeah.
let me just throw this out there, because what I'm hearing is Stephanie's not ready to vote on this as it stands, and she wants to make some changes. What if we try to send this to Policy Sub now, and they try to come up with suggestions to then send to the school council for their review and feedback? And then at our next meeting, we can see where we get, like if you could schedule a Policy Sub, and I know right now who's on it officially with you.
Well, I mean, I'm
Jess is with you? So, and you seem to be you've been involved, and you just said you wanted to be involved. Do you want to take this off?
Well, so my concern is sort of what Marty's saying, is I think that I don't feel comfortable with that condensed time frame. I think it needs to be approved. I'm going to vote to approve it with all of the caveats that I mentioned before, but I think it's something we need to embark upon next year, because we need to say to the school council, they're not going to be meeting. I'm sure the school council's not going to be meeting anymore this year. And they need to be part of this. They need to get the feedback, and it needs to, they need to be involved. So as much as I 100% agree that there's a lot of work to do on this, I think it needs to start fresh next year, and also certainly bring some motions forward for revisions during the year. That's how I feel. So I will vote in favor.
Stephanie?
Russ, do you have any input on how this works? Because I have, when was the last time legal went through this?
I think it was
A couple of years ago.
I'd say 2 years ago.
I think the first one I voted on had been reviewed. It was one of the first things we did.
2 or 3 years ago, we went through all our student handbooks.
I don't remember us as a committee, spending a lot of time looking over revisions, but I guess I wasn't involved in any revisions. I just.
I mean, you pointed out some things that are definitely wrong.
We
But-
could fix those. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think.
Clerical.
There's clerical
Well,
errors
it's legal
and
too. There's old,
Sites.
yeah, so I need to look, I was looking online, we've got a printed version. The problem with the handbook, and why I feel like it's something that can't just be pushed through, is the handbook is law. As long as it is in compliance with state and federal law, it is law. So anything that we hold the students to, that we put in this handbook, there's really not a whole lot of recourse that the student can have. And it's on their record, and you're going off to college. So I take it, I give a lot of weight to this, and it's not something that I am willing to just push off and say, we have a timeline, let's push this. I also don't feel that it necessarily needs to go back to the school council. It can go back to them. If they want to, we can send it to them. Are they going to convene in time to give it back? I guess it's in their hands. They're on the school council. They volunteered for that position, so it would be up to them to get it back to us or not get it back to us. But because they gave us something does not mean that I feel, or does not mean I have to say, okay, we have a deadline, I'm going to push this through, because I have a stack of concerns that I met with Marty through, and I'm not going to go through every single one, but we're talking, suspensions, expulsions, what we're suspending kids for. One of these things on here that does not, the law would take effect over what we put in here, but some of the things on there just need, and we have a school council, and I give them a lot of credit, but we are the ones who approve or reject it and send it back. And I think that our main role is policy, and this is policy. So I give this a lot of weight. I'm not willing to just push it through because of the date.
So a compromise could be, I think we have to vote on the motion, but if we voted for the motion and then over the summer we work on what the amendment might be, you can, as Marty said, amend it. I mean, you could amend it in September potentially and send out the amended document, or at least the changes to students. But I don't know with the timing of where we're at now to try and do it now, the whole thing, I think might be difficult.
Well, having gone through it, I feel like the big stuff can be done. I mean, it really is just a matter of probably taking out some of the things that don't necessarily need to be in there. There's laws that back it up, and I think that the way it was written is muddies it. But I feel like the big stuff is not that difficult to get at, and I think Marty was alluding to the fact that we can just change that without sending it back. If you're going to go down to the, some of the consequences and changing those, and do you get 2 detentions or 3 detentions? Do you get? I mean, some of them, if you read through them, are quite something. That part would, I agree, would need to go back to the school council. But when we're talking about, the legal part and due process and appeals and making sure that those match up and making sure that,
I don't think I haven't found anything, there might be some legal references that are wrong, and there might be some, but I haven't found, I just want to assure everybody, I haven't found anything in the handbook that is out of compliance with federal or state law.
Well, one of them, and I'll look at the print versus the online, but it was saying about the hearing will be scheduled prior to expiration of 10 days, but the hearing actually needs to occur prior to the.
Depends on what hearing we're talking about.
Right, that was on the appeal, but on the appeals and due process procedure.
Appeals to, again, it depends on what appeal process we're talking about. If it's, I think. And the other assurance I want to say is, when I think that the high school, the climate and the culture of the high school are fantastic for starters. I mean, the students, 99.99% of our interactions with students are influenced by the handbook, and even when they are, there's so much discretion and conversation that goes into the application of those policies that I think what I heard Tom say at your last meeting is they've tried to introduce some language to ensure that there's conversation going on between administrators and families, before you take action with regard to tardiness, for example.
I want to try to be conscious of time, just because we have so much to get to. Do you want to suggest that compromise? Like, I hear what you're saying, Stephanie, and I'm just trying, and I haven't piped in, but I do understand what you're saying, and I definitely was in a position at one point where I was uncomfortable with something that I had voted for, and I had to proceed anyway because I had voted for it. And so, where the student councils arrange these, we're the ones that are standing behind it ultimately and are going to have to, proceed with anything that it says. So I certainly think that your point is valid. I'm just trying to find a way to move on to the next agenda item in a way that is productive and get us where we need to be. So can you
I'd probably leave my motion the way it is, with the understanding that there would be, I think if there's any legal issues, we need to fix those, as soon as possible, whether we go back to council or not. Most of the things I do think have to go back to school council, but if there's legal issues, then I think you and Marty and probably legal counsel could address those, and at the next meeting come back, and we can always, make those changes at the next meeting if we had to. But I think the motion, I'd probably leave it as it is, with that understanding that could happen.
And then how do we bring it back up, like pieces of it? So in terms of a process going forward, outside of this, how do we bring it back up can it come up throughout the year like
Yeah.
policy does? And do we just incorporate it into our policy revisions?
I'd like to add to that, how about if we add to the motion that we will immediately begin work on redeveloping a process and kick it to the policy subcommittee, redeveloping a different process for the handbooks for the next school year. Jess?
I don't mean to confuse things, but I just think that if we're going to make an amendment to the motion, potentially, I know Russ hadn't mentioned this, but if we did make an amendment that included any legal discrepancies being reviewed and revised by a date certain, for example, August 31 or I don't know, whatever the day before school starts, that I think makes sense. So then we can hit the legal issues over the summer. And then in terms of policy sub, I don't necessarily think it needs to be in the form of a motion, but we could do it as a separate secondary motion if you wanted to make that. But
we can or we can't, but I think just knowing that this will go to policy sub and policy will have a role in
I agree.
school council, I think we need something.
I'd suggest to you that you always have, right? I mean, that I don't think, I'm not sure you even need a new process because you already have a process in place with your policy sub. Policy sub meets, they discuss, they bring recommendations to the whole school committee. If the committee makes a policy change, then we can amend the handbook accordingly, so it's really.
Well, yeah, some of the handbooks isn't quite under policy, our overall policy.
do you want me to make an amendment?
I think Melanie can.
I just wanted to add, I agree with Steph that some of these consequences may need to come under review, and if this was reviewed and some of these things weren't changed or addressed, then I, having had now 3 high schoolers, can also agree with her, and maybe you have an opinion, on some of these things such as like tardiness or dismissal.
Right.
And what is exactly an approved absence or approved dismissal? Because for me as a parent, and knowing when I need to take my child out and have had to take one of my children out of school early, they don't fit the approved list there. So technically, they can not be able to make up a test they'd miss in that time block, or get a reduction on their overall grade or something like that. It really doesn't make sense. And for me as a parent, if I need to get my daughter to a doctor appointment because they're so swamped after school and you cannot possibly get an after school appointment for 6 weeks, and I've written a note, doctor appointment, I mean, even something as simple as a dermatologist, you're not getting into the dermatologist for 8, 10 weeks, 3 months sometimes if you have to get an after school appointment. So I feel like as a parent, for my daughter to come home and say, I was told that's not an excused absence, or approved being dismissed early, or another instance that I am aware of, I won't specifically say it was my child, but coming in late. I mean, there are times when your child, and I'm not saying it's an excuse, but they stay after school for a sport and are on a double bus on a basketball or a similar situation. They come home at 10 o'clock at night. They still have to eat. They still have to shower. And there have been times during midterms where they have 4 exams the next day. Not that they haven't prepared for them, but they may need to review or whatever, and they're up until 2 in the morning, which this has happened, or 2 or 3, where you say, okay, I'm going to allow my child to sleep in for an hour and come to school with a note and again be told, well, this is not acceptable. Sleeping in for an hour is not acceptable. And I understand that if this happens all the time or if this is a problem or a routine, but, I can assure you that this might have happened one time during the school year and to be said, okay, that's not acceptable. So I can see where, especially if there was a consequence, and of course, if I'm choosing that she can go in late one day or miss for a doctor appointment, we're picking the very best time for her to miss. We're looking at the schedule, trying to find an ice block or something like that. So just in general, I say some of these things should be addressed because technically there are some severe consequences that may not be deserving. And there's always that, or under administrator's approval, but do you need to call the school ahead of time and say, might I have approval to take my daughter to the doctor? That's really needed. So I kind of can back you up on some of these things.
Thanks, Melanie. Beth, did you have anything that you wanted to add or speak to?
I don't. I've never had a personal issue where I've had to, I do have 2 high school students, and I've never had to go against anything in the handbook or reference it for anything like that. I have read through it. We do get a hard copy. I think just my own input, I think we do have to appreciate the work that the school council does. And I maybe would ask that there be more, I think it was mentioned earlier, more parent input at some of the different levels and how we're looking at that data. But I think right now where we are, we're looking at maybe treating this as more of a living document over the summer, and we kind of are going to tweak and clear up the legal right away. But I agree with Stephanie, maybe the subcommittee on policy can maybe work to clean up whatever needs to be cleaned up. I haven't looked at any of the issues, the glaring issues that are, that she's seen. So maybe that's the right way to do it, have the sub-policy look at it, involve school council again, and then try to get this up and rolling prior to the start of school in September.
Okay. Let me go to Karen. Did you have anything that you want? I don't want to put you on the spot. So
No,
is there anything else that
I
you-
like the idea of a living document. I think that, I agree with Beth, I think we need to, the councils have put in their time, and we can't invalidate the work that they've done. I'm unfamiliar with a lot of the issues that Stephanie's referring to, so I will leave it more to you guys in that respect, but I do think that it's important that we have these subcommittees, we have these councils, and we have to let their voice stand. And where we see glaring legal issues, yes, obviously those need to be fixed, but I do think a living document that we can fix issues as we need to go and amend them as we need to go would be a good idea.
I just want to say one last thing. As I had gone through, and I want to clarify this, make this clear. I had gone through the online version because that's what I was given, and that's what it says 2016-17. As I'm looking through the hard copy, I'm seeing that some of the things that I was looking at on legal on there that needed updating in the laws are not in here. So this very well could be the document that the council was doing and not the online. So it might not be as needing as much cleanup as I saw online. So that could be the case. And I agree that the council, the school committee has the our policy manual, and the handbook has to be in line with that. So I give all the credit to the council. It's just we have the final vote, so I just want to be comfortable with what we pass through. I think it makes sense to have policies sub. Can we, under the law, attend their meetings they met 4 times? No.
No, they met more than 4 times. There was 4 meetings that they spent on the handbook.
On the handbook, but that's why, we?
School councils are open, they should be posted public meetings, so.
They are public meetings, and I would imagine we could coordinate some kind of a joint meeting if the school council was comfortable with that. It's not something that's been done before, but it would really be a question of who's on the school council. Yeah, and whether they want to do it.
Okay. Why don't we, Jess, let's clean up the motion and get something moving here. Jess, do you have something on the motion, or?
Well, first I need to know
Okay.
if if there's consensus around making an amendment with the legal discrepancies being addressed by the start of school next year.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's hear. I thought what I heard from the committee was that was something that we could just add to this, right?
So I don't need to amend it then?
Well,
okay.
We can just tell Marty.
Okay.
We'd like you to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that should happen.
And then
Okay.
in terms of, I just wanted to say very briefly, again, I am going to vote to approve it tonight, but I really share the concerns that Melanie raised. I'm also people know that I'm a very strong proponent of later start times for high schools, which is something I hope our society will move towards. But a note from a parent allowing a child to get that critical sleep should be enough to excuse a tardy, as well as a doctor's appointment within the parent's best judgment for that child. So I do want to see those sorts of issues discussed. So thank you for bringing them up, Stephanie and Melanie.
okay. So what if we vote on the motion now, and then we just quickly make the directive to policy sub to begin the review process next year? Okay. So
We have the motion, we just need a vote.
okay, let's take a vote. All those in favor of the motion. Should we reread it, or are we
No.
comfortable with it? Okay. All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? Diane, do you have that? Okay, let's move on to new, and I think we made that clear, policy sub, why don't you get started with that? And do you wanna-
Stephanie.
I know we're not doing subcommittees right now, but for the purpose of this, do you want to see if anybody else is interested on
Yes.
being on policy sub? That's
Great.
not on the agenda, is that okay to just quickly take care of so that Stephanie has somebody to work on this with?
Well, I think chair appoints?
Well,
Or
we
don't
it's
vote.
technically that the chair appoints, but really in practice how it should work, in my opinion, is that people say what subcommittees they're interested in, and Michelle and Russ can communicate with people and tell them about the committees and decide who's going to be on it. That's, I think, the best way to do it, instead of just telling people, this is where you're going, this is where you're going, this is where you're going.
I like that better too. So, but
It works out well
why
this year.
doesn't anybody, if this is your passion policy and it's something that you really want to be involved in, why don't you just raise your hand right now so we know who might be interested in it?
I don't mind, but I let.
You enjoy it. Raise your hand if you enjoy it and this is something that you choose over some of the other subcommittees that we have, just for simplification. Okay, so
So
we
that
have-
would be
and
great.
Stephanie, we know this is your passion. You don't have to.
But there's a lot of
Okay.
work to be done,
Okay.
yes.
So
that's
are
good.
you three interested in working with Stephanie to, on policy? Do we have 3 or 4? Wait,
3 is
who's-
fine.
We'll take as many.
Well, we can't have more than 3.
Oh, really?
Right. So which
Okay.
3, I guess?
That's fine. They can.
Oh, did Beth, you raise your hand?
I think we
Yeah,
had
that's
4
fine.
hands.
But I'm happy to defer. Taking some.
I'm not
So what do we
picking.
Do you usually send out, is this something that, without seeing all the other committees, it's kind of hard to
I
jump in on
understand.
the first thing?
I understand.
Is it something that you
You get a
just
list.
can
Just wait.
give us
Yeah,
a list
just
and
have
do
them
hold
like-
off on all of
So
that?
Diane could send us all a list, and then we'll send back what we'd be interested in, and
Yeah.
then they could.
And then maybe a list of the current people that are on it, so we understand that if there's only 3 allowed, we know what we can't jump in on and what we can,
If you want to ditch it.
Well, there's some that I'm on that I probably won't do
Right.
again. anyway,
Okay,
so it's-
right,
Yeah.
just to get that.
But we don't have any preference either. I
Okay.
mean, everybody's equal.
I didn't want to get into the big discussion on subcommittees. I just didn't know if you needed somebody to help you work on stuff before.
Over the summer would be, so if they just let you know, then, yeah.
Okay, why don't you email me if you're, after you go home and you look at the other options that we have, knowing that none of us are going to say we need to stay on this committee. Just give me an idea.
Okay.
Just specific to policy sub for right now, if that's something that you want. Okay? All right, let's go on to the new business. The MASC conferences. This year, MASC is offering a summer conference July 28th to 29th at the Marriott Courtyard in Marlborough. This is a new event. Information is in your packets. Please let Ms. Georgantis know if you are interested in sending members. I'll explain the other one too. MASC has a joint conference that is held in Hyannis in November. In the past, school committee members have gone to this or haven't, so there's a new conference offered and the one that has always happened. Diane needs to know in terms of whether or not we're interested so that she can book up hotel rooms early because they go fast. Let's have a quick discussion about the conference in general. I know I personally wanted to suggest that maybe we either send just the new members or we consider something else that might be more useful to us and, in better use of our funds. I didn't think that the conference was unhelpful, but I think that maybe, a team building exercise with somebody that helps us, and then maybe a facilitator that helps us specific to what we do in Long Meadow and the things that are important on our plates at the moment might be a better use of our time. I'm just throwing that out there, and I know new members, I don't know if you read over the information in your packet, it's just a suggestion, and I don't know what the, Stephanie, Jess, and Russ, how you feel, but.
I
Russ?
totally agree with what you said.
Russ?
So one thing with the annual conference in November, for new members, you have to do 8 hours of, charting the course, I guess it's called. But you can do your 8 hours at that conference if you they give you a checklist, and if you go to the 8 hours worth of things in those 2 days, you get your training done. So I did that the first year I was on, but you can do that in the Berkshires, they do that once a year too. But if this is interesting to you, you can kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone by going to it. So it should be the July one, obviously.
They have
Yes, but
they have a list online of all of the ones that they offer, so you can kind of go onto the MASC website and look at when they're offering different.
So Diane and I were wondering if the July conference would qualify as the orientation program for new members. I'm not sure that's clear.
They did, one of them put it, charting the course as one of the things you can attend. I think I saw it. I just happened to notice it.
Well,
But
the
I will
November
say,
one, definitely.
charting the course was offered in the Berkshires, like Lee. It was a really easy, Saturday was free.
Actually, I did it here.
Oh.
I don't know how that was set up, but they came here and I sat in this room for 2 to 3 hours.
They
and
will
it
do
was
that.
done.
Well,
So,
they used to do it. They
No,
don't.
Glenn said he would do it.
He
I
did?
asked him this year, and he said he would do it, but
Well,
we didn't
have
have enough
3 members,
interest.
So they might do it this year.
Yeah.
Particularly with.
they said no to me.
No, Glenn was great. He said absolutely.
then, I mean,
asked
that, in terms of logistics for everybody, I can say that it was really hard to arrange everything to get away to a conference, and if the main point would be to do the training, I would say, just as a suggestion, it was so much more direct and to the, it was personalized for Long Meadow and for the questions that I had and everything, so, anyhow, why don't we just hear from the new members on what they're feeling? Do you have a preference, Beth?
I'm away at the end of July, so
Okay.
that's not even an option for me for the Marlboro one.
Okay.
So I would probably just do something local or the Berkshires.
Okay.
But together would be good.
Okay. Melanie?
So for me, I also am not here on the 28th and 29th, although I like, in terms of my personal interest, I like the topics that are discussed in that one, and I would have picked this one to go to.
The July one.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I am available in November.
Okay.
I can do that. I don't
And you
have any.
said you weren't here for July anyway.
I will not be
Okay.
here. No,
Okay.
I will not be here for
Okay.
those dates. So the way I see the difference is, it seems like the one in November is, the topics might be better for us kind of newbies, some of these topics, whereas this seems like if you go to a workshop on what's the update on the new law, or it just seems like more of current kind of events maybe, and current information, whereas this seemed like more of planning your budget 101 and this and that, so. But I can't go in July.
Okay, so, Karen?
But I can't go in November.
Yeah, my preference would be something local together, it just would make it easier. And I sort of defer to you guys and your knowledge of how valuable these conferences are. So if you think the November one was essential, then I could try to make it work. But I think local and together and specific to the district would be much more valuable.
Okay. And Jess and Russ, you felt?
I guess to answer that question, I would say not essential.
That's what I was going to
Yes,
say. Not
exactly.
essential.
Useful, it's useful.
Yeah, useful but not
Useful,
essential.
But at
It's
the
a
same
lot of-
time, maybe we could make
Do
something
it
that's
here.
more useful to us
Mhm.
without so much,
It's a big chunk of time away
Yeah.
from your family.
And
I mean,
at a
it
tough
feels
time.
huge.
Yeah.
So, like Michelle said, it's nice to do something that's a little bit more efficient. But, you do connect with people from different districts
Mhm.
and you gain a lot of information. I mean, it's definitely beneficial. But it was just tough for me because of my kids' ages and being
Mhm.
away for that.
The thing is, some committees, so it's all the committees in the state and the superintendents usually. So some committees, you all go together, or it's kind of like that's the team building part of it, is
Right.
you go to some of these conferences together, you go out to dinner, they have events, that you go to at night. Well, it's really a dinner at night. So if you all do it together, it's kind of a, way to get to know each other more personally than you do sitting around this table, maybe. But, if it's only going to be a couple of us anyway, then you lose that aspect. So then you're really just there for the conferences, which are useful, but I don't know if you want to be there 3 days just for that. So it's really only 2 days. Nobody stays for 3.
So I can say that I would love to organize, a team building and something around here. Doesn't have to be in Long Meadow, but just something for us personally. And I could look into some options for us, and we can still consider the joint conference if need be. But it was hard for me to go to too, and I didn't. I can say that I might not be able to go this year. Stephanie?
So last year I went to the conference put on by the NSBA, and it was excellent. And that would be something I'd be looking at doing next year too.
So for
Is
the
it the
purposes
November?
of this meeting,
No, it was.
I just want to add that I can do the November one if that's something that I didn't mention that earlier.
so Diane, I know you want an answer in terms of rooms.
Well, it's a lot
It sounds
cheaper.
like July is done, and nobody, or is anybody else interested in going in July? Okay, so we're not interested in that. And then for the November, it is a lot cheaper now, so is anybody thinking that they might be interested in going? Why don't you raise your hand if you think there's a possibility, because Diane, you can still get, for the most part, you can get. Why don't you
What I'll
make
do-
4, or what?
I can, if I pre-register you, I can't get registration back. However, if I book hotels for you now and just book the hotel, I can always get that money back if you change your mind. Usually, and if I don't book you now, you won't get a room. You'll be off-site, and then the value is really depleted. So I'll book your rooms, and you have to tell me whether you really believe you're gonna go or not. And if you are, then I'll go ahead and pre-register, because there is a savings.
That's
When's
by
the
July
deadline?
15th, right?
Okay.
July
Yeah.
15th is the deadline?
Yep,
So who said maybe?
so renew.
And I'll put in a maybe for the hotel room, definitely
Okay.
don't register me. And then we can kind of use that deadline, June 16th, so that's soon. For the pre-register or just for the, is that the deadline discount for the registration?
For the pre-registration
Okay.
discount. yeah.
What's the savings for
I think it's
booking early?
$450 normally, and this is, so it's $75 per
Per
person.
person, okay.
But if you come up with an alternative, you know, that's
Okay.
great
I'll
to
try to
stay at
give some-
home and not spend money.
I'll try to throw some options out in the next day or two over email. We can't discuss it, or can we discuss that per se?
I think so.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you can just, I'll throw some ideas into an email, and then you guys can read those ideas, and then you know what you've heard. If you have any more questions for any of us that have been, you can ask us off camera, and then we'll get Diane answers on the registration. But for now, why don't we make 4 hotel rooms, just because we can have our money back.
Yep.
Okay. Moving on to the nurse. School committees, according to Mass General Law, Chapter 71, Section 53, appoint school nurses. Glenbrook Middle School principal has conducted a search and recommended to Superintendent Dr. O'Shea the following candidate for hire as a school nurse at Glenbrook Middle School. Jess?
I move on the recommendation of the superintendent that the school committee appoint Ms. Gladys Rivera as school nurse for Glenbrook Middle School beginning the 2017-18 school year. Ms. Rivera will be employed under the Longmeadow Education Agreement, Unit C agreement.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for, did you have a question?
Well, no, it's probably, I'm sure this is a done deal pretty much, right?
You can ask a question.
Yep.
It's-
Well, the only thing that caught my eye is that she's in a nurse practitioner program and will be graduating in the spring of 18, which is in 1 year. And I guess I would have just been curious.
Where's that now?
Well,
Where are you looking?
well, I was looking at her resume.
Yeah, which part? Which
Second page, the third line. So, I don't know, I guess that, I would just wondered what she might be doing when she finishes in 2018, just having a nursing background myself. If I were a nurse practitioner, I would want to know what nurse practitioner degree she's getting, and, you know, if it's in family or neonatal nurse practitioner, she probably would not be staying here, would be my assumption, but it's just something that caught my eye, that she finishes in the spring, and I wondered if that had been addressed.
I think you have a second, do you have a second page on that that's not on mine?
Maybe the back?
Yeah, I just
Okay.
have the front.
And then her current, the only other thing I noticed was the current experience, put on my glasses, brought us to 3 of 17. So I just was curious myself.
She has been, so I had an opportunity to meet with Nurse Rivera, and she is a resident of Longmeadow and seems to be committed to working in a school setting. That was my sense. We never really know what the future will bring for employees, but she seemed really invested in the district. I think she's been subbing for us and has done a great job. So she's very well known to us, and I'm not sure what the nurse practitioner program looks like, frankly, but they're excited. Nicole Allen and her team and Liz Gartman was involved in the interview process, and she's done a great job as a nurse for us as a sub. So,
Any more questions or discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Okay, one abstention. Okay. Did we have, we did. Okay, sorry. Moving on to the overnight field trip request. Enclosed is an overnight field trip request for students from Glenbrook Middle School to go to Washington, D.C. Jess?
I move on the recommendation of the superintendent that the school committee approve the overnight field trip request for students from Glenbrook Middle School to travel to Washington, D.C. on Friday, April 26, 2018 through Sunday, April 28, 2018.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Jess?
I just wanted to ask if Glenbrook could, my daughter went on this trip this year and she absolutely loved it. It was phenomenal. I can't believe how many of the teachers go on this trip. It just blows me away. The commitment of the staff in this community is blown away by it. And they took such good care of the kids. It was really touching. But my one suggestion is add a night, please, or at least consider adding a night. It was just so brutally condensed. But other than that, I support it.
Any other questions? I do want to, I've brought this up before, I do want to, as we move forward, I know we'll have one for Williams as well. This has always been a concern for me because the cost is so high and the students can't work themselves to earn the money for it. So I know there are students that stay home and can't go because they can't afford it. So I'd like to figure out a way to somehow address that because I'm very uncomfortable with endorsing this trip as a system and having kids be left out for financial reasons. So, Stephanie?
Wait, do we have on our agenda, like, suggestions for future agenda
We do.
items?
So
Do
we can come
Okay,
back to
wait.
that then. Anyhow, I just wanted to say that, and I know I've said it before, but Jess?
Just to your point, the kids shared beds this year in the hotel rooms. So I'm pretty sure it was 4 kids per hotel room and 2 kids in a bed, which wasn't ideal either. So we can talk about it some other time.
It's a great experience. I don't want, right.
I
No,
think,
I
like, the
understand.
whole thing needs to be sort of
analyzed and, okay. But
I agree with
support
what
the
you're
trip. I
saying.
want it, but I don't want anyone to be left out
Left
for
out.
financial
I
reasons. when
totally
it's-
agree.
And there's one thing when only like 5 kids are going from the district or from the grade or something like that, but when it's like most of the grade going and it's a school-sponsored trip.
And I think there
sense
were a
that-
lot of kids who
yeah,
didn't
there
go
were.
for the reasons.
I was there that day when, doing food services, and there was the group that wasn't going. And
Yes.
It just, it was.
Yes.
So anyhow, we'll save that for another time, but we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay. Acceptance of foreign exchange student. Long Meadow High School received a request to host a foreign exchange student from Germany. Mr. Landos has reviewed the records, references, and host family placement of the student through the AFS International Exchange Program. Dr. O'Shea and Mr. Landers support the student's acceptance. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I move on the recommendation of the superintendent that the school committee accept Mr. Florian Schiffer with tuition waived as a foreign exchange student in grade 11 for the 2017-18 school year.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. Suggestions for future agenda items. And we have this on, we've had this year on every agenda, but I do want to suggest also that maybe we spend some time, all of us, and think and brainstorm some things that ahead of time and for planning purposes that we would like to bring to the committee. I know when I started as a new member, I had, a few things on my bucket list that I wanted to really delve into. So I think it would be helpful if we all brainstormed for the school year, like a wish list of things that we'd like, and then we can do our best to try to incorporate them in an organized way and get to everybody's, or at least some of them. We might have to prioritize. We'll also be setting school committee goals. Marty will be setting his goals. So maybe we can use those as kind of a starting point to develop, make a plan for the year and our goals. But, so anyhow, that's the broad, thing, and start brainstorming, and maybe we can reconvene with that at our whatever we do as a retreat or something like that. But for today, any suggestion for future agenda items, Stephanie?
I was wondering if on our last meeting of the month, if we could discuss school supplies and maybe some ways that we could address particularly students who are already identified as economically disadvantaged through, they're either receiving free lunch or some other way. I don't think that captures all the kids, but I would love to have something in place for the fall where, I don't know, it's a little bit late, but even going forward, some way to address this, because the school supplies, particularly at the elementary, I think even middle school, are very expensive. I don't know about the high school. And I think there are ways that other schools work to address it. We don't do a bus here or something, but I think that we can maybe figure something out.
And so we can talk about that as a future agenda item. The other suggestion that I would love to throw out in terms of that is if the principals are sending out a school supply list, maybe at the bottom we could say something like, if this is a financial, issue, if you feel that you cannot provide these supplies for your students, please contact Tom Mazza.
Talk about that.
I don't know, something that somehow says. Maybe so that before the lists go out officially, and I know they're posted on websites and some of the elementary schools buy the kits, so they've already been purchased for some, but maybe something that implies that we would be there if you needed something, so I don't know. But do you want to put that on for the next meeting?
I would love to have that discussion. And even I know other schools too, if a child is on free lunch or somehow otherwise identified by staff or whatever, a note goes out to the family and says you can come to the office, pick up the supplies, or don't worry, we do kits, which make it really easy. The kids are not identified. There's no way to know whether they paid or whether it was through the school, which makes it really easy for those elementary kids. So I would love for them to not even have to worry about it.
I understand, and I'm sure that businesses in the area would be more than willing to donate.
Do we get money from those kits back when we go through those kits? So is that rolled back in any way, or?
I think that's done through the PTO.
It's a PTO
PTO
fundraiser.
fundraiser.
But that could also be brought up to the PTOs.
PTOs,
Yeah.
Because the PTOs I'm sure would be thrilled to help out in any way they
So
could.
if we come up with some ideas, we could maybe bounce it back to them.
That's a good idea.
And just, I guess the issue would be like a safe contact for that person to go, for whoever needs supplies, someone that they wouldn't maybe, that they would feel comfortable going to. So if that's Tom or something.
I would feel comfortable talking to Tom about it.
I do believe the principals in the school identify those particular students, so there might already be some communication between the principals in the various buildings with the PTO boards.
Can we find that out?
I'm sure that's the case. Yeah, that's certainly the case, that they do try to identify the students through the data that we have or just through their regular channels.
And are they just getting I'd like to know if they're just getting the supplies without any hassle. We already know they're identified.
Right.
If we can if the PTOs would work with us to,
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that it's being done in a way that protects student privacy and confidentiality.
Yeah, the
and,
kits are pretty easy.
Yeah.
Everybody
So how
just
about
shows up.
for the next agenda item, Marty, can you bring to us that information?
We'll gather some
and for
info
each,
for you.
level,
Yep.
school, whatever.
Yep.
Okay, so any other future agenda items? Do you have that, or Jess?
So this agenda item, suggestions for future agenda items, we can hold on to it or we can get rid of it. I redid the agenda this year, but I just want to be really mindful when we talk about suggestion for future agenda items in terms of open meeting law. We really can't get into the substance of whatever we're proposing. So say you want to bring up a topic, I think it's safe to just say, this is a topic I'd like added to the agenda, and really leave it at that. We really can't get into a substantive discussion about the issue. And it's also, hard because people haven't prepped to talk about the issue.
Good point.
I would suggest if we, I don't know how much is in the placeholder for the next meeting already, but if we could add high school start time, just for the purposes of discussing the creation of a subcommittee for next year to start looking at it and talking to other communities, I would be interested in briefly discussing that.
Okay. So there is anything else? Okay. There is an executive session planned for this meeting. I need a motion.
I move that the school committee meet in executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 2, to conduct a strategy session in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, specifically the superintendent of schools, the assistant superintendent for finance and operations, the assistant superintendent for learning, the director of pupil services, and the principal of Blueberry Hill School, and to reconvene in an open session, I believe.
Is there a second?
Second.
After the motion is made and seconded, the committee must take the vote by roll call. Each member's vote has to be recorded in the minutes. So what you do is you say your name, Karen. And then
Karen Warren.
Aye.
Aye.
Michelle Grodzki, aye.
Russell Dupre, aye.
Jess Hutchins, aye.
Stephanie Jasmine, aye.
Melanie Rothstein, aye.
Beth Barron, aye.
Now, the school committee will now be meeting in executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 2, to conduct a strategy session in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, specifically the superintendent of schools, the assistant superintendent for finance and operations, the assistant superintendent for learning, the director of pupil services, and principal of Blueberry Hill School. The school committee will be returning to open session. Now in executive session. Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
That means the camera's off? Is that what that means?
Good
Yeah.
evening. Have a great night, anyone that's still listening.
So we're all executive, just so I understand,
Yes.
we're all executive?
We're all very